I would go back to the FT survey. And I think a lot of leaders, those in the C-suite, were confusing busyness with effectiveness. So there was no real engagement, but management of their corporate identity, essentially, is what we were seeing. So busyness, no. Effectiveness, yes. So in other words, I would suggest that organizations, those who lead in organizations, need to do less, but do the things that really matter. And they're going to make a difference to Black lives. I think there's been a lot of effort on things which give an organization a very warm glow, but don't actually accelerate the pace at which people of color progress in the progression pipeline, in the management pipeline. I think the other thing, which is a blind spot, is what I would call snake oil. So there was, I remember seeing many, many years ago, a talk given by the chief executive of GlaxoSmithKline, and he said, he was asked the question, would you use consultants to help you make your strategic decisions? And he actually said that I would see this as an act of cowardice on the part of my organizations. I have an executive team and their job is to make decisions. And I think so a blind spot, I think, amongst many leaders is assuming that they can get somebody in who's an HR specialist or an EDI specialist, and they have no clue whether they're doing a brilliant job or if they're offering snake oil, the snake oil solution. So they need to be as au fait with what is necessary to create change around equality, diversity, and inclusion and the lives of Black people in the organization as anybody else in the organization. They wouldn't basically hand over responsibility, their chief executive roles to somebody else for anything else. So they need to take responsibility, and it needs to be visible and clear that they're taking responsibility.
And I'll just add to that in terms of a blind spot is speaking for, as a Black woman myself, is when we're addressing Black Lives Matters, it's not about a quota system. And I think it's a blind spot when people just look at an organization and say, oh, there's no Black person here, let's just put one here. Because as a Black person, I take pride in what I do, in what I bring to the table. And I want to be approached and dealt with on my merit, on what I've achieved, on what the belief they have in what I'll bring to the table. And I think that's different. So as people are putting different proactive things together and releasing statistics, I don't want to be seen as part of the statistics. I just want to see that everybody is treated fairly, irrespective of the color of a skin. Opportunities are available for everyone. And that's how it should be. And whichever way I speak, whichever way I look, I should be given that right and that opportunity, just like anybody else, and treated merit. I shouldn't be given any preferential treatment because I'm Black and because there is an agenda to promote more Black in the workplace, but just give me that opportunity and treat me fairly. And I think that is a blind spot because there's something about a quota system and merit. And like the earlier point you said about people's value system and moral, and just making sure that one is true to one's values and one not just only says it, but one acts accordingly. I think it's very key. And like one message that I've been saying all through and through is about listening and acting accordingly. That is so important, not just having been fixated on an existing agenda and not being flexible enough to adapt it, to be able to move the organization forward.
Can I just give a quick response to Morenike, because I think it's crucially important, and when I want to put it in. When I came to Queen Mary, there are a lot of people of color, of women, who were stuck at the bottom of the pipeline of progression. And I looked at their qualifications and I was very clear that there was no reason for them to be there. So we ran briefing sessions. I went through every one of their applications. Normally we'd put 5 or 6 applications forward to the faculty, they would reject most of them. On this time, we put 28 applications forward and 24 were promoted. And that's the way it's continued. So in other words, I think merit, you have to be a bit careful with merit, because I think it's not so much about merit, because a lot of people who will use the language of merit, and what they actually mean is we want the opportunity to block people and advance the people we want to block. So we need to be careful about that. I think the key is opening up the pipeline and making it clear what the rules for progression are, formal and informal. And in many organizations, the rules for progression are informal and not made clear, particularly to people of color, because it's done through informal mentoring, it's done through special projects and so on. And what we've agreed at Queen Mary is that we are setting targets. We are setting targets for the number of people who are female and also the number of people of color who will be in certain positions in 5 years and 10 years time.